The PlayStation 4 has had an awesome generation thanks to its game library, and one area where it has really excelled at is offering great Japanese experiences. Of course, games like JRPGs don't tend to appeal to everyone, but there are a lot of JRPGs on the PlayStation 4 that have gotten really underrated and not enough gamers have checked out, so in this video, I'm going to be going over 6 JRPGs that every PlayStation 4 owner needs to play. Some of these games include remasters and ports and things like that, but all of the titles are available on the PS4, and I feel all of these games are rather accessible even if you haven't played a JRPG in the past. And if you've played JRPGs in the past, well, you'll feel right at home with these titles, and you've probably missed out on a couple of these games as well because they've gone really underlooked. Without further ado, let's get right into this. First up, a personal favorite of the channel, and that is Valkyria Chronicles Remastered. Valkyria Chronicles was one of the criminally underrated games on the PlayStation 3. It released all the way back in 2008. Sega decided to bring this game over from Japan and hoped it would find success on the PlayStation 3, and critically, while it was very well received, it did not see that same kind of reception from a commercial standpoint. Sega did eventually make a Valkyria Chronicles 2, but it was released on the PSP, and we never even got Valkyria Chronicles 3 stateside, and that game was fantastic. Luckily, Sega didn't give up on the franchise, and Valkyria Chronicles was remastered onto the PlayStation 4, and this is an excellent remastering that's available at an excellent price. The game itself is told through this wonderful storybook that's very unique, and anyone can get behind the awesome art style that the game has, and it's aged very well as well. Even being a 10-year-old game, it still looks great to this day. And luckily, Valkyria Chronicles is continuing on. We have Valkyria Chronicles 4 coming later this year, but this is a franchise that still needs a lot more love, and by the way, right now, Humble does have a little Humble bundle going on where you can get Valkyria Chronicles Remastered and a bunch of other games for $15. We'll leave a link for that in the description box down below. Shameless plug out of the way, you should definitely check out this game, whether it be through that bundle or you want to pick up the retail copy. The retail copy usually goes for like $25, so I would highly recommend it.
Here we go! Here we go! Now!
Just keep up this pace.
Next up, another personal favorite of mine, Dot Hack GU Last Recode. The Dot Hack franchise was a PlayStation 2 RPG franchise that was really released in a money-hungry way. The first Dot Hack franchise was released in 4 separate games, and the Dot Hack GU franchise was released in 3 separate games. Now, all of these games shared similar mechanics, but you would have to play all 3 of them to get the entirety of the game. Each game is rather long. You can spend around 25 to 30 hours with each of them, but really releasing them as 3 separate $50 games, that didn't rub a lot of people the right way. But now that isn't an issue because you can get Dot Hack GU Last Recode, which includes all 3 games, as well as a smaller additional 4th episode that adds a little bit of extra content. On top of that, you've got some gameplay refinements, better visuals, better technical performance, all that good stuff, a really solid remaster. And Dot Hack GU was a franchise I feel a lot of gamers missed out on in the PS2 days, and this PlayStation 4 collection is excellent, and I think a lot of you guys are going to find that the gameplay to these games is very engaging, very fast-paced, action-oriented combat, really easy to be engaged in, and it's got a pretty solid story on top of that, so one I would definitely recommend, and a franchise that has gotten really underlooked. I would love to see an original new project, but who knows if that'll ever come to fruition. Next up, we've got Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. This is a very recent release. It came back in September of last year, and Ys is another franchise, while it's been very consistent, has never really exploded even in the JRPG scene. Those that have played it can appreciate it for its consistency. I think that's what you can really say about Ys. I mean, we're up to 8 games, and all of them are rather good. This is a very consistent franchise, and yes, while it is Ys 8 and every game follows the same main character, you can jump right in and have a pretty good time with it. What I can say about Ys is that it's a very competent JRPG. It's not an amazing story, but your typical JRPG fare. I know the visuals isn't going to please everyone, but if you're already familiarized with JRPGs, visuals probably isn't the #1 thing you look for, so that should be fine. This is one of those JRPGs that probably wouldn't be a go-to right away, but some point down the line, if you've played Japanese games, if you like them, I would highly recommend you to check out Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. Next up, another heavily underrated JRPG, Tokyo Xanadu EX+. Now, this was a game done by Falcom. It was actually originally released on the PlayStation Vita as just Tokyo Xanadu, then it was later ported onto the PlayStation 4 in the form of EX+, a little bit better visuals, some extra content, your typical fare. But the game itself is really good. I've always compared it to Persona, but I always say that don't expect a game at the quality level of Persona 5. That's just a very high bar to reach. I mean, many consider Persona 5 as the best JRPG of all time. Tokyo Xanadu isn't quite that, but what it is a great JRPG. It has a good story, some very likable characters, and visually, yes, while it is a PS Vita title, the PS4 version is improved upon. However, you can tell that this wasn't a game developed ground up for the console, but still an enjoyable game and a very accessible JRPG. Next up, Odin Sphere Leifthrasir. Odin Sphere was actually received rather well on the PlayStation 2. This was the game that kind of brought Vanillaware to the forefront, at least stateside, and they've done some excellent games since then. You had Muramasa the Demon Blade, Dragon's Crown is an excellent game, and by the way, that's getting remastered onto the PlayStation 4 in the form of Dragon's Crown Pro, and they brought back Odin Sphere onto the PS4 in the form of Odin Sphere Leifthrasir. Now, if you missed out on Odin Sphere, which I wouldn't blame you, it released all the way back in 2007 on the PS2. If you're a younger gamer, you might not even know about the game. It's a very artistic 2D action RPG. Now, while visuals from a technical standpoint might not be the strong suit of this game, because of its artistic presentation, it has aged really well, and I find it very much playable even to this day. You can just appreciate the art style for what it is. The gameplay is solid, it's got a lot of replay value, and this version on the PlayStation 4 is a much better version. With additional stages and divisions between battle and exploration, there's a lot of extra content here. This is a title that's really held up in value, however. It released almost 2 years ago and it's still going for around $35, and given that it is a remastering of a PS2 game, that might turn some gamers off, but if you can find it at a little bit cheaper of a price, I would recommend you to check it out. And finally, I have to give a mention to this game, as it's arguably the PlayStation's most underrated franchise ever. That's not hyperbole in my opinion, and that's Gravity Rush 2. Gravity Rush is one of those games that I thought would be a lot more popular than it was. I understand why the first Gravity Rush game didn't explode. I mean, it was released on the PlayStation Vita, and the PlayStation Vita, while I loved the platform, it didn't really sell all too well. So with the first Gravity Rush game, you kind of stifled its potential audience at that point alone. We did see Gravity Rush Remastered, and by the way, that game's on sale for $9 right now as a part of the Golden Week sale. I would recommend that game as well. But Gravity Rush 2 is a far better game than the first title. It's built ground up for the PlayStation 4, has so much more content, way better gameplay that's more versatile. It's just everything you want a sequel to be, and considering you did move from the Vita to the PS4, of course, Studio Japan had a lot more to work with, and now you can get the game pretty cheap. It's available for $20 on the PlayStation Store. It's a great game at this point. I don't think we'll ever see a Gravity Rush 3 because of, unfortunately, how poorly this game sold. But if you've yet to play Gravity Rush 2, I implore you, this is a title you absolutely need to play, and maybe at some point, if we get the word out about it, Gravity Rush 3 can come to fruition, but at this point, I do think it's unlikely. However, you need to play Gravity Rush 2. That's gonna conclude this video. 6 underrated JRPGs that every PlayStation 4 owner needs to play. A lot of great JRPGs, more great JRPGs are coming, and maybe we'll do an updated video down the line. There's a lot of other great Japanese games that I wanted to cover, and some games that are kind of in between on whether or not you would consider a JRPG, like a title like Yakuza 0. But in the future, we'll definitely update it. 2018 looks to bring a lot more JRPGs to the PlayStation 4. You've got Disgaea 1 complete, of course, Dragon Quest 11, Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't need us to promote it, but a couple of those other games I think we will get the word out about. That's gonna conclude this one. Sound off with your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.